Welcome to the Story and Critique stream. This is our bi-weekly stream where I read stories to help you improve your storytelling. I do a live reading and a live critique. Whether you're writing fantasy, romance, children's memoir, a screenplay, a poem, or something else in between. I've done well over 200 of these critiques, and I love to help you with improving the different elements of storytelling. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Kauffman, daily writing streamer, fantasy author, and dragon enthusiast. So come join us because we're starting right now. All right, so how do you submit? If you're unfamiliar with the process, all you have to do is submit in the submission form. You just fill out a couple questions, you include the link. It's linked down in the YouTube description. I also threw it up in the chat if you're watching this on another platform. Very easy. The sooner you submit, the more likely you are to be able to get into the next story and critique stream, which we do bi-weekly. And then how do I critique? So I like to use a blended approach, and let me pull this up here. So as y'all know, I like to use a blended approach where I break down the different elements of creative writing: character development, world building, dialogue, plot, or style. By breaking up the elements that need to be improved, the elements that are working out well can help the author to understand, okay, this is what I need to work on. Maybe it doesn't all suck. Maybe it's just these things that really need to be fixed. So I really like to break it up by this. And I think that really, really helps. And by the way, if I'm working on your story and you see me highlighting it, no worries. That's just a matter of me making sure I can keep track of what I want to critique on when I get to the critique portion. Because as a note, I do not read any of these stories beforehand. I might glance over a little bit just to get an idea of what type of story it is so I can cue it up correctly, but I generally don't read any of the stories. More so to keep it fresh for myself because I want to have a fun experience with y'all. All right. And most importantly, whether you're watching live or on the replay, join the conversation. If there's a part of the story that really stood out to you, drop a comment. Let the author know what you thought, what you liked, what you hated. If there's something that didn't resonate with you, that's all right. All feedback is good feedback, as long as it's delivered in a way that is kind and clear. So we're all assuming that if we're submitting our stories, like myself, you guys see me write Scarecrow every day, that we want to help get your story to the best possible place it can be. All right. Beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. And I saw a couple more hop into the stream. What? Welcome, welcome. Devin, what is up, my friend? Always great to see you guys. And let's get into it. So we're going to be, let me get the screen prepped and I will be ready. So we're actually starting with a creepy, spooky story, which I think is actually going to be perfect for the spooky season. So I think this is actually the perfect story to kick us off into the writing vibe. All right. And I think we are all ready. Let me make sure I have this. And without further ado, let's do it. All right, my friends, I hope you're ready for this. So now reading The Woven People, a horror dark fantasy by author Eli M. And Eli wants help with, let's see, all feedback is welcome. So any feedback is good feedback. And it is about, he had an image of a tiny woman made of the forest in his head, and he just started writing it. It's still very, very new. This is the first draft of a short story. Let's see how we can help out Eli today. Jeremy and Chuck. Jeremy Sanderson was only 6 years old the first time he met the queen of woven people. His daddy, Chuck, was in a gray and blackening mood and had grown agitated and sent Jeremy outside where he couldn't be a nuisance. It was just as well. Jeremy didn't like his daddy. He was a mean, scary person. He yelled a lot, and Jeremy was convinced that his daddy didn't really like him either. He didn't look at the clock as he left. There was no point. He couldn't read it, so he knew that he'd better stay outside until his daddy came and hollered for him. Only thing was, he couldn't get too far away so as not to hear him hollering and anger him further when he was supposed to come back. That meant he only had a handful of choices as far as destination. The treehouse was infested with bees. So that was out. They'd burned the giant pile of sticks and leaves and lawn waste that his daddy called the critter condo. And Jeremy caught 3 long black snakes, 2 mice, and a baby fox as they'd come crashing out of the burn pile. But that was weeks ago. And mysteriously, none of the animals had survived. Longer than one state mandated visitation weekend. Jeremy still cried when he looked at the scorched spot on the ground past the drain field, so he didn't want to go that way. He would have gone to the monkey tail tree, his tree, the one that was planted the day he was born. But that was too close to the house. Chuck was bound to hear him there. That left the willow bog. Chapter 2: The Willow Bog. A 6-year-old has no concept of evil. No inkling that the beautiful queen, who looked like she was made of moss and leaves and the pieces of the forest, would wish him harm. So, Jeremy Sanderson didn't run away when he saw her sitting on an old log in the willow bog down the deer trail from his daddy's house in the woods. He was looking at her, but he didn't notice she was there until she moved. And even though he was afraid, he didn't run. She wasn't as scary as Chuck after all. She didn't look much like anyone he'd ever seen before. For one thing, she was tiny. He couldn't be sure with her sitting, but her feet didn't touch the ground from on top of the log. Her body was the colors of the forest, the sort of felled grau that blends itself into any vaguely wooden, temperate climate. Here a patch of mottled light, and dark, the light like the bark of a birch. There a wisp of white-green like Spanish moss. She was shrouded in a regal wreath of verdant leaves and holly, and on her head was a crown of foxglove and bleeding heart that almost glowed fuchsia and the muted earth tones. She was so lovely that he found he had trouble looking away. Soon she met his gaze and held it, and he thought she looked terribly sad. Are you all right? Jeremy knew better than to talk to strangers, but somehow this felt different. She looked so sad. Perfectly, she replied in a bright, musical voice. She smiled, and Jeremy could feel himself blush. She reminded him of a princess from a movie. Okay, good. Jeremy felt himself relax a little. I thought you looked so lonely. Heavens, no, she said, laughing sweetly, and then she pointed up to the sky. Jeremy turned to see what she was pointing at. And through a hole in the canopy, he could see the ghostly moon, even though it was the middle of the day. When he turned back, she was gone. There's the only lonely face, she said, suddenly right behind him. He shuddered, and she let out a high, musical laugh. She placed her hands on his shoulders, and he tried to turn and face her, but she was impossibly strong and held him in place. I want to show you something, she whispered, very close to his ear. Jeremy could feel a stinging in his eyes, and he knew he was going to cry. I ought to stay here. My daddy will be out to fetch me before long, he said apologetically. Oh, don't worry, the queen said, turning Jeremy around. Her face wasn't beautiful at all anymore. Instead, it was as terrifying as a ravenous wolf, her features twisted and distorted like the gnarled branches of a tree. We won't be gone long, she said with a grin that turned Jeremy's stomach to ice. And with that, she took his hand tightly in hers, walked to the edge of the bog, and drove, dragging Jeremy after her into the cold, murky sludge. End reading. Wow. First off, Eli, really, really great work. I think I'm always so intrigued whenever we do little. This was definitely flash fiction because I was like, this piece was definitely on the shorter side. I would say that whenever we do sections and stories for like scary, you basically set up this really kind of scary this bog witch, I think. And we're following the POV of a very young child. I think what you've done really well is I'm very intrigued by the world building. I think the world building is fascinating, and I can tell there's this really dark, creepy magic that I really want to know more about. I kind of want to know more about this Bone Witch. For anyone who is a Miyazaki fan, any of you watch Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, the Bog Witch kind of reminded me of like that style a little bit, especially when she kind of changed forms. I was kind of getting that vibe in my mind when I got to her transformation at the end, and I thought that was interesting. I'm like, I didn't really know what to expect from her, and we don't quite know yet if she is like, if that's like witch magic, if she's a shapeshifter, or what the magic is. But I'm definitely intrigued, and not only that, this was also part one. So and let's see. So this was two parts. Not sure if this is the whole story. I know Eli said that this was a short story. Now this could work as the ending of it. You'd probably want to tweak. You would want to tie off, make the climax a little stronger if you do wrap it up here. Or if you continue it, I think a third part could really finalize it and really make it a little stronger. So let's get into some of the opportunities for it. So Eli, one of the things, and this was interesting because I've actually done this before. One of the biggest opportunities is the character POV. So you write in a 6-year-old's POV. And anytime we write young characters, we are going to get this from readers all the time of how do you correctly show the age for a character that is young. Now, of course, a lot of times when we write younger characters, they're usually much smarter than their actual age. And that happens all the time in books, all the time in movies, all the time. 6 years old is a little on the younger side. So 6 years old is a little on the younger side. You readers might challenge a little bit. Does the 6-year-old match their language and all their actions? I think the dialogue you use actually does reflect the character well, right? You use terminology like daddy, you use his POV to a certain extent. I think you can take it even further. So here's my two recommendations. I either go option one. I think you should push his POV into using even more younger language. Like this is a really great moment, but I would say more of this if you're staying in his POV the entire time. That's option one, since he's 6 years old. Option two, I might recommend aging him up just a little bit, just so people aren't going to challenge that, because 6 years old is young. Now, granted, I don't have children, so I'm not sure what the habits, what the general or average habits are of a 6-year-old. If anybody has kids or anybody has children, and you know what that 6-year-old age range looks like, feel free to drop a comment. But I might age him up just a little bit so you don't get challenged on that. But that's just my subjective suggestion. So I think outside of that POV, because that kind of goes a little bit into the style and the character development, I think the tone of the story is on point. You did a good job with the tone. I think that's very strong. You did a good job setting up here. I was happy with his opening. Clearly his dad has anger issues, and Jeremy comes from a broken family, which is interesting, right? That's good. That's a good backstory and good trauma to come from, especially in a horror story. Let's see. Don't look at the clock. And I think it's kind of interesting that his safe place is basically infested by rodents, and I think it sounds like insects and rodents, and he basically has no way to fix it. I think that's a really smart choice to set it up like that. Let's see, called the critter condo. And I like things, I like it when you use terminology like the critter condo. I'm like, cool, because that's unique to your world. I'm like, what the heck is a critter condo? But that's just something his daddy calls the lawnways, the critter condo. That's great. More of that terminology. Even more terms like that is perfect, because it helps further cement that the world and the relationship between Jeremy and his father. Now, it's hard to say whether his father is abusive or whether his father is absent. And I think, yeah, you might touch on it, but I don't think you clarify. And I actually don't think it's important to clarify, but it's interesting. And it creates intrigue because I want to learn more about the relationship. Now you say things like this bit lost me a moment. You said, but that was weeks ago, and mysteriously none of the animals had survived longer than one state mandated visitation weekend. Okay. So that suggests that the father is a convict. I think you should expand on this idea a little bit. It should be its own paragraph. Once again, when we have multiple ideas in paragraphs, if you get them, put them in the middle, sometimes they can get lost. That's why I always highly recommend it. Yeah, this isn't just to you, this is just writers in general. This is a quick little tip for everyone. If you struggle with long paragraphs, my best recommendation is make sure your paragraph structure focuses on one idea. What happens, sometimes you can pull off more than one idea, and sometimes some writers do it very well, but the more ideas you add to a single paragraph, the more likely the reader is either going to skip over some of them or it's going to get lost, right? Especially if you have like an action and a dialogue and then you introduce new information. Too much in one paragraph loses the reader. That's why paragraph structure is so important, because then when they get to the next paragraph, like, oh, okay, from a reading perspective, okay, I should pay attention to this because it's the start of a new idea. FYI. So let's see, let's get back into it. And oh, I see that, Eli. You said, okay, just meant to imply that he spends the weekend with his dad sometimes. That's kind of what I thought. I thought it was something to that extent. Part of the divorce settlement. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I think you can yeah, and I think that's actually an easy fix since it's basically a divorce. Then you wouldn't have to clarify, you wouldn't have to expand on it too much. It sounds like that's just kind of like a flavor for the reader to know about the world. What I absolutely loved, and once again, it's the names. Eli, I think one of my favorite parts of this story is you have such interesting names for this world. The monkey tail tree. I almost like Eli, because this is such a unique name, I almost want you to start the story mentioning the monkey tail tree. This could actually make the opening even stronger. If you reference the monkey tail tree in like paragraph 2, and then you come back to it at the end. That's just an idea, but because this is such a unique name, I was like, I think people want to know, what is a monkey tail tree, and clearly that adds to his character development. And then Chuck was bound to hear him there, and not sure who is. I think Chuck was the dad. Chuck, yeah, his dad. Yep, Chuck is the dad. Chuck was bound to hear him there. Yep. Yeah, so you did set up Chuck. I wouldn't in this moment here, I would not use Chuck as a name, because as a 6-year-old, you kind of go back and forth between daddy and then referencing his name. And I get it, especially if he's not spending much time with him. I could actually totally understand that. But I think I would stick with daddy, because to further solidify a 6-year-old name, or use another nickname for him, right? Use like an alternative nickname instead of his real name to further solidify the 6-year-old mentality. That'd be my suggestion. And this is a great tie-in. This is a great lead off, by the way. I love this. So this is absolutely great. This is a great cliffhanger for this section. So this leads us straight into the Willow Bog. And so, okay, so this is interesting. So the start of the first one, shouldn't look much. Yeah, so the entire second bit is no longer in his POV. So the first section is entirely Jeremy's POV. And then the second section is entirely not necessarily the Willow Bar, or not necessarily the Queen's POV, but it's a narrator. It's a removed narrator POV, which is interesting. I don't I think my only I think my that when it comes to a POV swap like that, so it'd be one thing if you did this as a single paragraph and then led it back into Jeremy's POV, but this is kind of the style of the second chapter. What I might recommend, so that way it adds more so that way it makes the chapters feel even stronger together. I might recommend starting off I was only 6 years old. His dad Chuck was in a gray. I might recommend removing the POV, Jeremy's POV from this first one, and making this more removed as a narrator. Like, set that up as the style that the chapter starts as the narrator from a top-down perspective. Narrator, because you kind of do that, but you also have his, you have POV bits here that could make it a little stronger. But once again, this is just like a subjective suggestion. But I mean, there's no right or wrong way to this. But you could chance having the reader feel it, making them feel like it's a jarring experience because they're expecting to stay in Jeremy's POV because you've done so much work to solidify them in the mind of a 6-year-old. All right, and then I see what you're saying. So you wrote the second part first, and then you wanted to give Jeremy character development. Okay, so that's actually really interesting. That makes sense. So then you essentially wrote this, and then you want to do this with more character development. Yeah, I mean, Eli, there's a couple different ways you could go about it, but I think I would say pick a lane and decide, do you want to keep the whole story in Jeremy's POV predominantly, or do you want the whole story to be more narrator? I think that would tie them together a little stronger. Now, as a horror story, I think what could work well is switching between narrator, Jeremy, narrator at the end. Because usually when you have the narrator, it creates kind of that creepy ghost story vibe. So I think that would be interesting. And then, I mean, this is good, right? So 6-year-old has no concept of evil and no inkling that the beautiful queen, who looked like she was made of moss and leaves, piece of the forest, would wish him harm. And so this is good for setting the tone of the second section. You could definitely reduce on like some of the wordiness here, but once again, this is a rough draft, so we're not going to focus. We're not going to worry about grammar right now. He was looking at her, but notice she wasn't as scary as Chuck. Yep. Yeah, and then you do kind of go into his POV. She wasn't as scary as Chuck after all. She wasn't as scary as Chuck. Yeah, and I mean this is probably his POV. Kind of the narrator. It's kind of the narrator's. The psychic distance is kind of removed. If you do go narrator and then his POV, I would make it super clear that this is his POV, Jeremy's POV, if that's your intent. Like, she didn't look like much anyone he'd ever seen before. Okay, so this is more clearly his POV. For one thing, she was tiny, maybe a whole head shorter than Jeremy was. He could be sure. Yep. And I really like her description. Like, her description is super creepy. I'm like, I think she's my favorite character of this story. I want to like Jeremy. I feel like I'm not connected enough with him yet, but I absolutely love her as a creature type. Perfectly in a bright musical voice. I like that. So she's ominous and she talks in this very like welcoming, warm voice. And the reader's like, this bog witch clearly ain't or this bog queen witch, whatever she is, clearly ain't what she's supposed to be. And I do like that. She reminded him of a princess from a movie. And if you're going to keep it in Jeremy's POV, I want more moments like this. She reminded him of a princess from a movie. I think you could do so many references like this, especially if Jeremy's like reads books or reads movies. What are things that 6-year-olds do and their imagination, right? So you want to be as explore the imagination as much as possible because that age range, wide imaginations. So I think play into that. There's only one lonely face. Um, she said suddenly right behind him. You know, this is a really interesting thing, Eli. I do this myself and I feel like I do this all the time. This is just me being an editor. Suddenly, 9 times on the time, you don't need to use suddenly as a word. Because we're using it to add tension, but like suddenly the thing happened. This thing they said suddenly, you can actually have the same strength of the sentence without suddenly. She said right behind him. She said suddenly right behind him. She said right behind him. Right behind him, getting rid of a word like suddenly helps you get to the action more directly. That's something I realized in my own writing. I use suddenly the same way, and then I have to pull back and edit. This is good. And I think that I highlight this because I love this. I love the distortion and the twist from fate from beauty to this like twisted tree appearance witch. Not really sure what she is, but that's super cool. I want to learn more and I want to see if Jeremy's going to survive the evil bog witch. So definitely that's all that I got for you today, my friend. Thank you so much for submitting. I hope that was able to help you out. I know I definitely enjoyed that. I always love starting with super scary horror stories, and I would love to see. Let me go check the comments. Let me see what everyone thought of it. And let's see. All right. And by the way, if you're enjoying the stream, follow, subscribe. We're here every day with the Right Now community. 650 consecutive streams and counting. If you need help with finishing your book, finishing your story, your screenplay, and you need that motivation, this is a community full of all styles and all genres of writers. So make sure to tap that follow or subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right. And next, we'll be hopping into, in just a few moments, we'll be hopping into Broken Mist, a speculative fiction sci-fi by author Desdemona Rose. So we'll be hopping into that in just a few moments. What did everyone think of the story? Let me go check in on the comments. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely could tell that you got some definitely some recommendations here, Eli. That's actually a really good call out, Devin. Like, what does she sound like? I think when she transforms, you could totally Eli play on some of the other senses. And especially because a 6-year-old, their imagination is crazy. So I think there's actually a huge opportunity there to really play into what he hears and maybe what even he could taste and things like that. Oh, that would be good. That would actually be interesting. Especially if Chuck is involved, if Chuck is like in the third section, that could actually be a really interesting tie off. That's actually really good to know. So Devin said, "As a mom of two boys, this is almost on point. Maybe Jeremy is 4 years old." Interesting, interesting. So yeah, that's actually a really good. That's some good feedback. Jeremy is 6 years. Or Jeremy is noted as being 6 years old in the story. So that's actually good to know. Yeah, Eli, definitely some really great feedback for your story. And once again, spooky stories are always fun. I know we did your spooky story, I think a couple critique streams ago, and we're kind of in that spooky season. I mean, friends, we got 2 weeks till Halloween. What are you wearing for Halloween? I would love to hear. I'm so curious. Does everyone have their Halloween costumes picked out yet? I'm very curious. We're going to be showcasing some of our Halloween costumes for Freaky Friday next weekend. So hopefully you're going to be able to join us for our second annual Freaky Friday competition and our third writing competition hosted by the Right Now community. Oh my goodness, Courtney, this is incredible news. So Courtney said, "I have exciting news about Falling." So Courtney's novel, Falling for a Storm, is going to be launching, I want to say in a couple weeks, I believe beginning of November, but I'm not sure. So let's see. You're following the critique show helped a lot. My ARC readers are getting it delivered today, and one person has already cried. Oh, so amazing. So amazing. That must be such a great feeling, Courtney, knowing that you were able to really move a reader. It's definitely a great story. I might be biased, but it's definitely a great story. All right. And let's see what we got. So we are. All right. So, Desdemona, I just saw your comment. I just saw you said you edited the whole thing with a pronoun change and a few other little things. Do you mind if you paste the new version in here? Yeah, you absolutely can. I was just about to hop into your story. Let's see. So, why don't we switch it around then? Um, All right. So while I let you do that, Desdemona, if you're watching this, why don't you paste in the new story? I'll hop into the next story in the queue and we'll come back to it. So that way you have some time to make that adjustment. And let's move on to the next story in the queue, which is, we'll come back. Let me just pull it up here. Which do I got next? All right, so we'll hop into the next one in the queue, and then Desdemona. Why don't you just update your that Google Doc with the new version, and then I'll come back to it. So, yep. All right, so I just did that. Okay, so with that, let's hop into the next one in the story and critique stream queue. Is where did we go? So Phoenix. The next one is Phoenix. So this is a fantasy by author Unknown Messenger. Unknown. I know I saw you in the chat a little earlier. Well, I'll be hopping into your story next. So we're going to pull yours up. Let me get it queued up over here. And we are going to do this. And by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream or you're just watching the replay, welcome. This is the story and critique stream where I read stories live and do live critiques, very similar to an alpha reading. And if you're wanting feedback on your story, submit now. The submission link is down in the YouTube description down below. All right, and let's do it. Let's hop into this next one. Okay, so let's get into it. And I think, excellent. All right, Unknown. So I have your story all set up. And let's see what we got here for unknowns. All right, and I am all ready. Okay. Now reading Phoenix, a fantasy story by author Unknown Messenger. The feedback they want, anything and everything. So all feedback is welcome. And the story is it's about a young man and his familiar met for the first time, and stuff ensures afterwards. This is a novel, and this is the first draft of a novel. So we're not going to worry about grammar. Since we really focus on grammar later in the drafting process, we're going to focus on developmental opportunities and how it makes us feel as readers. So without further ado, Phoenix. Chapter 1, Wern. The sun shines through the velvet curtains, masking my glass windows. The sunlight shining directly onto my closed eyes, waking me from my deep sleep. I groan, forcing my eyes open, and let the light blind me. I sit up, grab my glasses from my bed, and put them on. Today is the day. I utter softly. I slowly stumble to my wardrobe, opening it with a shaky hand. I grab the white sleeveless shirt with detached sleeves and black embroidered pants. I'm forced to wear it. I'm forced to wear it to the summoning of my familiar ceremony. I hope I don't get a weak one, especially for my title's sake and lineage. Come on, my dear. This day will be the best day of my life. So put a damn smile on your face or I will make you. My mother sweetly whispers as she fixes my shirt, though I hear the hiss in it. I nod as I put an artificial smile on my lips, crafted through years of my mother teaching me. Of course, mother. I will make this the best day of your life. Her sweet smile turns into a scowl as she turns and walks away. Her heels hit the marble floor, letting me know she would loom over me the entire ceremony. I sigh as my hand moves on its own to fix my glasses. The cold blue-hued light shines through the stained glass window on the ceiling, casting an eerie glow across the room. A shiver runs down my spine. I swear, she has you wrapped around her finger, a warm voice says over my shoulder. I glance over it to see my cousin, though we are not related by blood. His smile is soft and loving. He tilts his head slightly as he shakes it. I know, it's just so imagined. It's just so ingrained in my head that I can't stop myself from doing what she says. His eyes soften, but I swear, I can see a hint of annoyance or anger. I turn my head to look up at the stained glass ceiling, searching for the reason I exist, or anything to do with me being here, getting lost in the pictures of familiars of my ancestors. My eyes land on a silhouette of a phoenix. The founder's familiar. A blue phoenix, or so the stories say. The only person in documented history to have one. The sound of footsteps coming closer, then an arm wrapped around my waist in a flirtatious manner, causes me to jump slightly and let out a soft squeal. A laugh meets my ears as I turn to look at the owner of the arm. What makes you think you can scare me like that, Thorn? I whine as I pull myself out of my cousin's grasp. I turn to face him, taking a few steps back, while crossing my arms over my chest with a pout on my lips. A laugh escapes Thorn just as he shakes his head. A small smile forms on his lips while he looks me over. A shiver runs down my spine. Can a guy hold his future wife in his arms? He laughs, striding over to me again. I continue to take steps back from him as he follows me, until I'm pushed up against a well, with his arms on either side of my head, trapping me there. Thorn lowers his head so his lips meet mine in a hungry kiss, knowing if I try to resist, he'll get angry. So I just give in and kiss back. My eyes close so I don't have to see his face so close to mine, whilst I fight the urge to just push Thorn away from me and run into the ceremony room. But I don't want to go in there yet, or at all. How does the protagonist feel about himself in this moment? Just when I thought he'd want to go further, I opened my eyes and spotted my mother's familiar, beautiful, white, snake named Inasa. I pushed Thorn away from me and spoke before he got angry. My mother's familiar is watching us. I pant, whipping my mouth from any lingering taste of my cousin on my lips. He glances behind and huffs in annoyance when he sees the snake. While stepping back from me, oh, thank the Magi of the Phoenix, I don't have to do that anymore. I push past Thorn and walk over to Anasa. Bending down after reaching out my hand for her to slither onto, she does right away while looking between me and him behind me. Her eyes shine a soft purple, letting me know my mother is looking through her eyes. Inasar turns to look at the door of the ceremony hall. A sigh escapes my lips, knowing that it's time for me to summon my familiar. I stand up and face the door, taking a deep breath to calm my nerves. I stand in front of the altar, pushing up my glasses. My gaze is on the tome that helps me summon my familiar, my life partner in a way. A shaky hand stretches out to the tome, flipping through the pages until one catches my eye. One finger moves to a line of text that seems to have faded from time, but the words come to me naturally. Fire of life. The fire of life and magic come to me. Let my soul guide you to the altar. Escort my partner familiar, the partner of my life and into death. Tell them that I am calling. The time to join into one is now. Let us be together again. My voice is soft, almost a whisper, giving my magic the power to guide the spell to where it needs to go. The soft glow glides from the home to the altar seamlessly, swirling into the air in a circle, causing the area to glow in a soft, fiery hue. A portal forms in the swirling circle, causing a blinding light to come from it. I close my eyes while shielding them with a hand. This feels more powerful than I thought it would. When the light fades, a thundering screech fills the room, causing people to gasp and whisper to each other. My hand moves away from my eyes as I open them, before landing on a beautiful silhouette of a bird. A bird of prey, maybe? But I haven't seen one like them before. Instinctively, I move towards reaching out to them. The avifauna turn their head to look at me. The fiery colored bird coos softly, stretching their head out to rub it against my hand gently. A smile forms my soft, plump, pink lips. At the same time, a warm feeling fills my heart when we touch for the first time. I can tell them they can feel it too. A soft voice rings in my head. I finally get to meet you, my special Inferno Flare. I know the voice is from my familiar. No, my partner. It has been so long since I have chosen you as mine. My smile grows, reaching my eyes for the first time in years. My soft, scared hands glide down the avian's sides. A soothing heat radiates from their body, mesmerizing every inch in my memory so I can describe it by heart. It's so good to finally meet you, I utter softly back in my head. A gasp finds its ways to my ears from close by, causing me to look at the person. My mother is standing there, her mouth agape. The murmurs of people talking to each other fill my ears again, too. Curiosity fills me while I step away from my life partner without realizing it. Their head turned to look at the crowd, almost annoyed that our moment was disturbed. Is that a phoenix? My mother finally exclaims, stepping back a bit. My eyes go wide at what she says, turning to face the avifauna. They just nod their head while spreading their wings and take flight. Without saying a word, instinctively, I follow where they are flying off to. Where are you going, Inza? The name falls from my tongue naturally, without me even realizing it. Now that I know they are a phoenix, they glide through the closed door. The door rips open when I grab the handle. Without missing a beat, I continue to chase after my familiar. Echoes of my footsteps reverberated off the wall of the hall. The sound of Inza's wings flapping is all I focus on. Where are they going? Are they leading me somewhere? I come to a stop when I can't hear where my familiar went. My gaze wanders the hall, looking for any clues to where they might have gone. A frown makes its way onto my lips. Inza, where did you go, you silly thing? My voice comes out shaky and sad, almost as if I'm about to cry. The old wooden door with carvings of flowers and birds. Their voice fills my head again. I turn quickly to that door, reaching out my hand and cautiously open the door, coughing when dust washes over me. A scared hand moves to cover my mouth and nose so I don't start coughing again as I make my way into the dusty, dark room. A small candle lit up by itself as I stop walking to the middle of the room. My icy blue eyes adjust to the dimness of the room before landing on Inza sitting on a small table near the candle. They tilt their head to the side, examining from head to toe. I can tell they are thinking about something, though I don't know how I do. My gaze then shifts to a small phoenix statue, broken on the old, stained carpet. Is that blood? Causing a shiver to run up my body. Wobbly legs take a few steps back before hitting what feels like a bookshelf. I quickly push off it, making a thick layer of gray dust kick up from it. My body turns swiftly to look at it. Old books warped from decades of sitting being untouched. A soft breeze carries a nostalgic scent that hits me hard, making me look around for the source, but can't find one. What is up with this room? It feels so familiar, yet so foreign. I manage to whisper out while a fiery red feather falls in front of my feet. My eyes scan down to the feather while reaching down to grab it. A small but brief smile forms on my face. I speak as I turn to look at Inza, still on the small wooden table. Trying to get my attention again? They nod before turning their attention to an old painting above the bed. I follow their gaze, looking at the painting, not being able to make out any detail of it, but only that it is of a young man and a bird. A pleasant chirp reaches my ears and the flapping of wings. My gaze snaps over to Inza, who's gliding over to me and lands on my shoulder. A soft laugh escapes my lips. I think it's time for us to leave this room. Their voice is soft, but holds a tint of urgency in it. I nod my head and walk to the still open door, slipping past and closing it behind me, though I swear I can hear a growl coming from a dark corner of the room as I exit. End reading. Wow. Wow. Phoenix, unknown, I have to absolutely say, like, you did an absolutely phenomenal job on the start of the story. I vaguely recall when we read through this story, so this is our 50-second critique stream. I want to say, if memory serves me, that we last read your story somewhere in one of the 20 to 30 episodes, 20 to 30, I believe. And anybody who wants to check out like previous stories, Courtney actually made an entire archive of every story linked with the episodes. It's so phenomenal. It's the archive. It's down in the YouTube description, by the way. But once again, you did such a great job. You did such a phenomenal job on this story. I feel I didn't feel like I was ever pulled out. I think there's a couple of small style tweaks that I would recommend to some of the structure of it, specifically the dialogue, and I'll get into that. But from a developmental perspective, I felt like I was clear on who our main character was. I loved the anonymity between our MC and the mom. Like, we got the evil stepmom figure over there. Cool. That's the vibe. And then I didn't get quite as clear of a sense of the other characters. I know we have Thorn, which is like, okay, we got the bad boy. It really makes me think that this is probably like a romantasy style when we kind of get that touch of romance very early on. But hard to say, right? I know this is purely a fantasy. I was like, yeah, I want to say this is purely a fantasy. I don't think it's romantasy. But I love, love once again. And I remember saying this last time. I loved what you did with the familiar. The moment the familiar comes to life is so cool. I almost want you to add like a little bit more flair to the moment the familiar shows up. I want that moment to be even bigger, but that's just me being a little subjective. I'm trying to understand. I don't quite yet understand how the familiar works in the world. I don't think we have to quite yet per se, because we're still so early on, but I do want to have a better sense of the familiar, right? So it's this little like creature that flies around and talks in our MC's mind. But everything the familiar said was super cool. I want to learn more, and that's a really great place to be. So I would say right now, when we look into the things that are working well, I would say the things that work well, you're doing a good job with your character development and your world building. I think we have a couple dialogue, you're doing well, and there's a few opportunities. I feel like the plot feels sound. So I'm thinking that right now the biggest opportunities is probably dialogue and style. So let's get into it. I think you do a good job of setting it up. So I think you do a good job of setting it up here with the curtains. I groan, forcing my eyes open. It's the day. So you set up that there's today is some type of special day. All right. So we're kind of setting up, okay, big day. You're kind of using that as foreshadowing. I actually think this would be stronger if you move this to the beginning. This is just my subjective suggestion. I think, okay, for some reason this is left. It should be like that. But I think this would be stronger if you do this, in all honesty. The sun shines, I think, but that's just my suggestion. And then we go here. I'm forced to work to the summon of my familiar, but I don't get a weak one, especially for my tile's sake. And you set the clarifying guidelines for what we're about to expect. Good job. Come on, my dear. This day will be the best day of my life. So put a damn smile on your face or I'll make you. I absolutely love this because we don't know any characters yet. I think this is an opportunity for you is your speech tags. Now, of course, you're not using a speech tag here. You're technically using action to help us know who's talking. But I think I would separate this. Come on, my dear. I think because we don't know who the character is yet, I think you want the reader to know who is speaking as soon as possible. Come on, my dear. So I think this is an opportunity to split up your dialogue. Now, I love to split up dialogue. This is one of my favorite things to do as a writer. So I'll give you guys all a little pro dialogue tip here for any writers here. you can add an action here. So I think I would do something like this. Come on, my dear. My mother said, sweetly. Yeah, it said. Mother said. My mother said sweetly. And then so essentially we've broken it up with a speech tag. And then this is still part of the dialogue, so you can make it work like this. And then I would add the action here. She fixes my shirt. My mother, though I hear the hissing. Oh yeah, so you'd have to adjust the action slightly. My mother said sweetly with a hiss. If you add more action here, you would then period that and then just make this a new piece of dialogue. So like essentially if you use a speech tag and it's short and it still flows, you can connect the dialogue together and make it flow a little bit more interestingly. If this becomes a longer beat or you're adding a bigger action tag, this, come on, my dear, my mother said sweetly with a hiss, it kind of doesn't flow as well if you use a comma. So I would just end this as a sentence and make this a new bit of dialogue. And then I would adjust here the mother fixing the shirt. So I think this makes it a little stronger because we want to know immediately who is talking. Come on, my dear. My mother said sweetly with a hiss. This day will be the best day of my life. This day will be the best day of my life. So put a damn smile on your face or I'll make you. That just feels a little stronger. But once again, this is subjective. Play around with it, however feels right for you. Okay, so this is good. You do a good job of setting up the tension here between our MC and our mother. So it's clear that the mom and we got. I'm saying evil stepmom because like that's the trope. We know the trope is evil stepmom. I'm pretty sure she's the mom, but evil stepmom. All right. And then her smile turns into a scowl. I swear she has you wrapped around her finger. Now, this I'm actually fine with not knowing who's speaking until after because this dialogue is much shorter. Because the dialogue is shorter, we're using the dialogue essentially as a hook. I'm fine with not knowing who the speaker is beforehand or in the middle. A warm voice says over my shoulder, great. And I think this is a good beat. I like that. So this is kind of a transition into, I think that's Thorn. I know it's just so ingrained in my head that I can't stop myself from doing what she says. Let's see. And yeah, it's like the dialogue and some of the descriptions can be cut down on wordiness. But once again, we're in the rough draft, so we're not going to focus as much about grammar right now. We're more focused on the developmental side of it. Let's see. As I was off soften, I swear I see a hint of annoyance. I turn my head to look up. I like this. Cause the sound. The only thing here, this is once again paragraph structure. So when I think about paragraph structure, we have a couple ideas in here. When we get the footsteps here, we want to make this a new paragraph. Otherwise, the footstep moment might get a little lost because you're doing description for the familiars. And you could go this either way. I almost might make this its own beat because this is interesting. The founder's familiar. A blue phoenix, or so the stories say. The only person in documented history to have one. Cool. All right, we get a little touch of world building here. Interesting. This is probably a foreshadow as well. My hands land on a silhouette. And then all right. And then, okay, so I know a warm, I think a warm voice says over my shoulder, we're not related to his smile. I think you would just clarify, is the cousin Thorn? I'm not sure if this is two different people. So I would just clarify. I'm pretty sure this is Thorn that he starts here, but then you say his cousin. Okay, cool. That's fine. And then you have a couple of descriptions here, and then you say Thorn comes up. So I would just say, I would clarify if the cousin is a different person, that the cousin walks away, right? So that way we know that she's by herself again. So I would just add that clarification. And then we get Thorn, makes things can scare me like that. And then I remember he kind of like forces a kiss on her. Bad guy. Ooh, we're not supposed to like him. Basically that bad boy type. And a guy how to keep the wife. All right, makes us dislike him. I think this does give us a clear sense of who he is from a very small beat. Let's get a little a laugh skips Thorn a small. Let's get a little bit more of a description what Thorn looks like. so that way he doesn't blend into any of the other characters. What does Thorn look like? Is he like, I don't know, is he like young 20s, really handsome, but an asshole? Or is he like 40s, 50s, wears like a leather tunic? He's kind of like a little creepy. You could go either way. But I think I want a slight description. Now, with descriptions, writers generally will take one of two paths. You can over describe, where you go paint an entire picture, or you can under describe, where you just give a few key details. Whatever you choose, that's on you. You're the storyteller, you get to have fun. But you got to do something. If you don't use any description, the characters will blend together, and then the reader won't be able to make a connection with who is talking. If the reader blends too many things together, that is when they get lost, and that's when things get confusing. So I think we would just give Thorn just a little bit of description. Doesn't have to be much. I think his dialogue does serve him very well. And then let's see. So we go down here. How does the protagonist feel about himself in this moment? Something tells me that this was supposed to be a comment. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be a comment. I'm pretty sure this is a comment. I don't think that's part of the story. Highlight. This is going to be highlight red. Remove that comment. Okay, just when I thought he'd want to go further, I opened my eyes. Yep, and I actually remember the whole. I remember this familiar ceremony when I started reading through this. I I almost kind of want the snake to like hiss at her. I kind of want like a beat where like this she like eyes the snake and the snake like they have a moment. This totally like this moment totally reminds me of the Harry Potter moment from book 1 with Harry and the cage. Any Harry Potter fans in the audience, like this reminds me of that first snake moment. All right, so that's good. She does right away. Okay, yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. So you do have the snake moment. You just bending down after reaching out first. So they're on to. Okay, yeah. So you do have the snake moment here. I probably just lost that. Good. Then we get to the familiar ceremony. I don't think I actually had any problems with the familiar ceremony. I think I just want a more vivid description of what the familiar looks like. And I like this. So we're doing this to paint the description. This is to me, like in magic, this is like the Harry Potter. This is like the sorting ceremony. This is essentially the moment we're getting. Soft glow, guides from the home, swirling, a portal forms. This is good. All right, so we get a before landing on a beautiful silhouette of a bird. Okay, so there's a portal, a silhouette of a bird comes out of the portal and then lands. Oh no, wait, before landing on a beautiful silhouette. Yep. So I like to use noise. The noise was actually really good. That was a good call. And then silhouette of a bird of prey, maybe. I wouldn't use interiority here. I would get rid of this. Because this is a present action moment. You want the reader to be focused on what they are seeing with this bird showing up until the bird talks. So I would get rid of interiority right here so you don't pull from that moment. Instinctively, I move towards reaching out to them. So the fiery colored bird coos softly, stretching their head out to rub it against my hand. A smile forms in my soft pink lips. All right, so we know it's a bird. And then, okay, so I think if I were to fix this, I'm not quite sure what the avifauna is. That's probably just a description for a bird. All right, so I think I would move this to the end of that paragraph. I'd make this its own paragraph and then focus on what does the bird look like in this one, right? So we know it's a fiery colored bird. Okay, so I'm thinking some type of bird. It's like shades of like reds, probably dark, probably vibrant oranges, maybe since it's fire colored. I mean that could be fine. I might add a little bit more detail simply because I imagine this is a major character. I kind of want to know what like style of bird it is because there's so many styles and I just don't know. But the avifauna could be the description. It could just be my lack of familiarity with birds. I do like the birds in dialogue. I do really like the birds' interiority. I finally get to meet you, my special Inferno flare. I think a soft voice rings in my head. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I think I would set this up as a tag the first time, just so we know that the soft voice is the familiar. I think the first time I would do that just as a setup. And then we get this. So, okay, now we'll know moving forward, italics is familiar. Perfect. Or italics is basically mind conversations. Great, great. Um, Perfect. And then, pause from my tongue. All right. So yeah, the rest of that is good. I mean, I think I'm fine with that. Essentially, we're moving to the next beat. I don't think I have any issues with the rest of that. And then we go into the next story beat. The next story beat doesn't really do all too much. It's kind of just like a building up a mystery and tension, right? They basically go into an old room, look for something, nothing is there, and then they leave, and then there's a ominous growl. So the next, it's like these sections, like they are important because you want to build the tension, but I don't think it does too much. Yeah, so like we got some foreshadowing here. It does a lot of foreshadowing. Gotcha, because they follow the snake to the room. Okay, so as I turn to look at Inza still on the small wooden table. Okay, so Inza is a snake who can glide. That's interesting. It's interesting. I just didn't know that. I didn't know because we don't understand the rules of the familiars yet. Um, Interesting. I actually thought her and Inza. I thought the main character and Inza had a rivalry because the mom does. But it's interesting if her and Inza are cool. I might just clarify that. I might find a moment to clarify that the MC and Inza are cool. Let's see. My gaze snaps over to Enza. A soft laugh escapes my lips. I think it's time for us to leave this room. Awesome. Yeah, so I think what I would do, I think with this next beat, I think what I would do is I would clarify when you get to the room. I think we want to clarify what is Enza's and the MC's relationship. Because they clearly followed Enza here. And I know you're doing a decent amount of foreshadowing for this bit, but I think that's what I would recommend. Because I don't know what the MC's relationship is with Inza. We know what the MC's relationship is with the mom. Not good. But I'm assuming because Inza is the mom's familiar, that it would probably be a similar rivalry. So then as the reader, I need to understand, okay, well, how come she's cool with the snake and then not cool with the mom? So I think that you could set that up here while also keeping some of these foreshadowing elements. So awesome. Oh, shoot. Inza is the fiend. Oh, Inasa. Inza is the Phoenix. Oh my goodness. I mixed those up. Yeah, and you know what? Phoenix, you know what? Unknown, because those names are are very similar. That makes sense why I was mixing them up. Okay, so never mind. Inza is the Phoenix. Inasa is the snake. Okay. So she basically MC followed Inza, the Phoenix. So I would clarify that then as a naming structure. That way, so you don't chance getting the reader confused, because Inza and Inasa are very, very similar. Unless all familiars are designed to have very similar names, I might think about making them feel a little bit more distinct. Unless there's intentionality, unless like you want the familiar and the snake to sound similar, I might just recommend adjusting the names. So otherwise, the reader might be wondering. The way to do that is when you introduce the Phoenix, clarifying the Phoenix's name, like I am Inza, something to that extent. Um, and I think the MC might say Inza at some point, but I don't remember. So, yeah, awesome. But that's all that I got for you, my friend. Thank you so much for submitting. I absolutely love that you've come back and you did another submission. That was really, really cool. I'm so excited to see how this story evolves. Definitely feel free to resubmit, whether you revise the chapter or whether you want to resubmit for a future chapter in a future critique stream. As y'all know, for those of you who've joined us for the past 52 episodes of the critique stream, some stories we've gone through many sections of them. Some stories we kind of just do revisions. It really depends. What do you need help? And let's see. So thank you so much for that. And by the way, so if you're just hopping into the stream and you're needing help with writing, I actually highly recommend signing up for the Art of Writing. This is our newsletter where I send out articles, stories, and tips to help you be a better writer. This is a really, really great newsletter. I want to say right now I'm on a monthly cadence. Hopefully I'll be able to get it to a little sooner. But right now I'll basically send out stories, articles, and exercises that can help you with improving your book, improving your writing, whether you're working on a book, a screenplay, poem, graphic novel, whatever. And in addition, just by signing up, you'll also get access to the Easy Edit tool. It's a free tool that you get just for signing up that will help make editing easier for you when you're self-editing. And you also get the weekly live stream schedules. So that way, if you want to know what times I'm streaming at with WriteNow, you get that on Sundays. So highly recommend. It's linked down in the YouTube description, but anybody who wants to sign up, I'll drop the link down here in the chat. So that is the Art of Writing. Awesome. And if you're just hopping into the stream, welcome. This is the story and critique stream where I'm doing live readings for writers in the community. If you want feedback, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. So let's see what story we have queued up next. I know we were originally going to hop into... Yeah, so it looks like you fixed this. So the next one we'll be hopping into is, I want to say, Desdemona's, which is Broken Mist. So this next one is a speculative fiction sci-fi. We're going to be hopping into that in just a moment. But let me go check back into the comments. Let me go see how all y'all do. How did everyone think of that last story? Awesome. I love that you guys were hanging out. I saw a couple of you guys hopped in at the beginning of this at the beginning of that last story, by the way. Always good to have you guys. Yeah, Unknown. You should be really proud of yourself that for a rough draft of a story, the rough draft, that's in a really good shape. That rough draft is in a better spot than my rough draft was at the beginning when I was working on Scarecrow. So you should definitely really be proud of yourself with where it's at right now. Then like the next step, whether you finish the book or whether you're still working through the rough draft, then you'll be able to go back through the revision process and then adjust it to match your overall vision for the story. Hey, what's up, Molly? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just about to hop into the next story. I'm just kind of seeing how everyone was thinking. The next one was that speculative. We're going into a sci-fi next. Mast, I saw your comment there. You said one issue I had was there was no conflict. I know he's kind of a pushover, but I'm not sure if this is supposed to be the thing he overcomes or not. So I think this was interesting. So when we think about what conflicts was there in that opening chapter, I think there was a character conflict between MC and the mom. There was some type of conflict. It wasn't very obvious, but it was very subversive. What else? With the familiar... Yeah, I don't think there was any conflicts with the familiar itself. Um, and this could be because we don't have an understanding yet of how the familiar works in this fantasy world. So I think that's really interesting. Something I might recommend, Anum, because I think that's a really good call out, is suggesting early on what is some type of bad thing that could happen if the main character gets the wrong familiar, right? You want to set up the stakes. Think about Harry Potter and the sorting hat ceremony. Nobody wants to be a Slytherin. If he gets picked to become a Slytherin, he's going to become a bad guy. They set that up very clearly by the time he puts the hat on. And then the hat adds further tension by asking, does he want to be whatever, Slytherin or Gryffindor, right? So you want that tension by the time the ceremony happens. We as the reader need to better understand, what if he gets the wrong familiar? What if he doesn't get a familiar? So I think you can add that. That will add some further tension and add further conflict in the beginning. And then once he has the familiar, we see the conflict, we see the tension with his mom, which is good. Then I think I want to ask myself, well, what's the next obstacle? So now that he's got his familiar, is it that he has to like learn how to use the familiar? Well, we kind of get that, but I'm just not quite sure. You do a lot of good foreshadowing in that next room bit, but I think we just need to know, like, what's the next goal now? So I think that's a good call out, Mess Toaster, something to think about. And you said you're coming to it later in the chapter. So yeah, that's something interesting. So you do have it in there. I think with obstacles, I might recommend moving one of them up a little sooner. Because if the readers feel like there's no obstacle, then they're like, okay, well, what is the reader trying to overcome? So it's definitely something to think about. Let's see. Yeah, I agree. I feel like the plot does move. I did feel bad for the protagonist. I actually kind of agree with that. That mom's that is not a cool mom there. Let's see. See like the other. Yeah, and I think that's interesting. So I think you could set up more. I think if you do some more setup, because the familiar ceremony happens really fast. And so this goes into plotting. I ask myself, I would have to know the entire book or the plot of the entire book. Is it important for the familiar ceremony to is it important to add tension before the familiar ceremony? You can go either way. If there's no tension before the familiar ceremony, the question I ask myself is, why not just start with the familiar ceremony? Right. So this is something to think about, Unknown. You might actually be able to, the story might actually be stronger if you start with the familiar ceremony itself. Um, Something to think about, food for thought. Once again, it's going to really depend on what your vision is for the story. So, yeah. So I would say either add tension or think about what feels right for you. Let's see. What do we got? Hey, what's up, Amelia? I saw you hopped into the stream. All right. Welcome, welcome, my friends. So, those were some really great comments. Thank you for joining the conversation. As always, all feedback is good feedback as long as it's delivered in a way that's kind. Because, guys, we all know as writers, we can't improve our stories. We can't put our books or scripts out there unless we get feedback from other people because we are biased. We are the most biased for our own storytelling. So absolutely love that, my friends. Thank you all for sharing. And let's hop into the next one. Let's see, what do we got next? So I think we had yours queued up. What was that? Where'd it go? I had you somewhere. All right, so we're going into Broken Mist. This is a speculative fiction. This is a sci-fi. All right, and let me pull yours up here. Okay, and I think I am all ready. So I got y'all all queued up and make sure that I have it all set up on my end. And by the way, while I'm looking this up, if you're wanting to submit now. Submission link is down in the YouTube description. You'll get put into the queue, whether that's for today's stream or for one of our future story and critique stream episodes. We do have a good number of submissions in the queue. Yeah, so I'll try to get to them as soon as possible. Okay, so this is Broken Mist. Perfecto. Okay, I'm all ready. So let's see what we got. And let's make our chat just a little bit bigger. All right. So let's see what we got here. And without further ado, now reading Broken Mist, a speculative fiction sci-fi by author Desdemona Rose. What feedback are they looking for? They want to know, is it interesting and what impression it gives about the world. This will be the prologue of the first novel. So this is a prologue of book number 1. They want general feedback. The book is about Mist is a thief, Marga an investigator. They live two very different lives and their worlds are about to crash together for a second time. This is currently in the revision stage of a novel. Now reading Broken Mist. Prologue, 946 Epta 16. Nervous blue eyes looked around the enormous ceremonial dome. The smooth gray walls spoke of a time long ago. The structure had once been part of the Talitha, a colony ship from the abandoned Earth. It was close to the end of Mikhail's fourth soul cycle. Though their birthday was still 4 months away. With no gender felt or declared, Mikhail still used the they, Tim pronouns. Mikhail. Blonde curls brushed until they shone, swung lightly as Tay tried to take in the lively scene unfolding around Tim. Parents stood with their children in rows, marked by large blue circles painted on a cool stone floor. Some children stood next to their parents while others played, running through the rows of people. Mikhail took a small step closer to Terra Mother, who stood proud and controlled. If she noticed the surrounding commotion, she showed no sign. Tay thought of reaching for her hand. Her warm fingers curled just slightly, resting next to light beige, undyed linen slacks. It was just a passing thought. Sometimes she didn't like that, telling Mikhail Tay had to be strong. Far above Terra Head, daylight filtered through a glass dome. A row of artificial blue daylights lit the far edge of the circular ceremonial building, dispelling the shadows where the sun's light wouldn't reach. The tableau was a mix of cool structure and warm furniture. Mikhail leaned away from Terra Mother to look between tall beige-dressed legs towards the wooden stage. Simple chairs flanked the podium. A mixture of bright gold yellow, robust red, straightforward tan, and deep brown wood showcased the variety of trees found in Talithan woods. Tay turned from the empty stage, Mikhail's gaze following the thick outline of the dark blue circle Tay stood in. To Terra right, another child, only a tiny bit taller than Tim, stood with a group. Only one child was there, like most of the circles. There was a family with twins, and another had two close in age, but those families were several circles down from Mikhail. Wide dark green eyes met Terra's, and the child they belonged to smiled warmly. I'm Oles. He, him. What's your name? He asked, walking to the edge of his circle while still holding onto an adult's hand. Tay looked up, and Terra Mother nodded. Mikhail. Tay Tim. Oles grinned. I'm excited. Laughter sounded behind Oles, catching Mikhail's attention. There were 4 parents with him, all of them speaking animatedly, including the one holding his hand. Another scrubbed his messy dark brown hair. Mikhail set Terra's eyes back on the warm, tawny skin of the smiling boy. For a second, they wished Tay could stop out of Terra's circle and into his. Then Tay thought of Terra Mother's disappointment and stepped even closer to her. The surrounding commotion was distracting. Terra's attention went from Oles to another child in the circle in front of Tim, who squirmed with excitement. Mikhail looked behind Tim to find another like Tim, staying close to their parents, gripping tightly onto a hand. Further away, adults and older siblings grabbed at running children, while others were left to do as they pleased. It was a special day for them all. A day Mikhail wanted to feel excited about. Suddenly, the metallic rumble of the ancient ship door being slid open reverberated slowly through the room. The many chattering voices fell to a low hum. The caretaker walked in first, dressed in the same linen clothes as most in attendance. The only thing designating them was bold blue armbands wrapped around their biceps and attached to snaps on their shoulders, each marked with white chevron stripes noting their tier. Most were tier 1 or tier 2, but one tier 3 stood with them. Their ages varied as much as their appearance and gender. 8 stood in a row a little distance behind the golden yellow wooden podium, polished to shine, a podium that seemed far too short for them. As parents finished collecting roaming children, the last caretaker took their position. A moment later, the deputy of education followed on a motorized wheelchair. He traveled slowly towards the center of the stage. Mikhail stood on Tay tiptoes, trying to see. Tay couldn't be certain, but Tay thought the deputy looked right at Tim with a warm smile. The deputy beamed, his white-tipped, close-cropped beard standing out on dark brown skin. Good afternoon. I am Deputy Betula Birch, he, him, the honored host of the great city of Anunitum Fortress District's fall welcoming ceremony. The booming timbre of the deputy's voice echoed through the room. Our little ones begin a journey. They will learn the skills needed to thrive as their own person and as members of Talithan society. Eventually, they will be among those who make Talitha Harbor thrive. Applause filled the room, and the deputy waited for it to quiet before continuing. All of your children have traveled at least 3 cycles around Sol. Some are 4, and few have reached 5 souls. We accept them all as equals. On this day, Talitha Harbor, age 946, the 16th of XC, your children will embark on their first steps of discovering who they are. There was more clapping. Mikhail followed her mother's example, clapping when she did. Glancing up, Tay saw her focused on the deputy. Tay turned to Oles, who clapped enthusiastically, his parents grinning down at him as he did. Beyond Oles were 4 more circles. Families of various shapes and sizes stood in them. Then there was a row of chairs, an audience that Mikhail knew was watching. Among the crowd, somewhere were their grandparents also watching. We'll greet each of the children in kind, the deputy continued. Following the tradition, we will give the little ones a choice that is fully their own. Though it's a simple act of picking a toy, this milestone will represent the choices they will make when they're older. Choices made as autonomous people who will eventually direct their own futures. When they're older, they'll have more important decisions for us to respect and support. Deputy Birch wheeled out from behind the podium and shifted his gaze lower. Once you are done, he said in a voice Mikhail thought was for Tim, you'll join your older classmates outside. There's a fun carnival set up. With a mischievous grin, he added, I hope your parents told you about the little bug juice. Mikhail did know about the little bug juice. Proud, Tay looked at Oles, who was giggling at something a parent was telling him. Turning, Tay checked the quiet child behind him. A crooked frown scrunched their face, and they wrinkled their nose. Mikhail decided they didn't know. The drink was made from a sour fruit, a special treat, and a challenge to drink. The deputy chuckled, pulling Mikhail's attention back. Names were called, and parents brought children forward one by one. Those on the list had already met the required developmental stages. They could communicate and perform the most basic needs. They were ready to spend their day with other children, learning empathy and other early childhood skills. Mikhail, Blackwood, Tay, Tim, Deputy Birch called after a few names. With Tara little heart thumping, Mikhail turned towards Tara mother, waiting for guidance. She took a proud step forward, her chin held high. Tay pumped Tara little legs, doing Tara best to keep up. When the two of them reached the front, a caretaker knelt down in front of Tim. Hello, my name is Curry Apolline. Zeh said, using Curry instead of caretaker, an alternate title for younger children that was easier for them to say. I am here to welcome you to our schoolhouse, Mikhail. Thank you, Mikhail said, saying the words carefully, sounding out every sound and syllable. Tay practiced with Mother for several days before the ceremony. McKeel's mother had said Tay were the youngest and all eyes would be on Tim. It was important to make good impression and show everyone Tay would not fail. Dark, bushy eyebrows raised a little in surprise. Still, Zeh smiled and then stood up to greet Tim Mother. I ask for your trust to teach and help care for McKeel as they grow. I give you my trust, Mother said. McKeel had already learned the importance of the moment, and Tay listened attentively. The ceremony showed her acceptance and trust of the vocation of education's ability to teach them, the same instruction she'd grown up with. McKeel would still live with Tear Mother, but spend part of Tear Day with the caretakers and teachers. All right, so I'm going to end the reading there. I was trying to get to a good beat. Okay, so end reading. Excellent. All right, so wonderful, wonderful. Wow, so that's really interesting. I feel like you've done an extraordinary amount of world building to really set up the language and the characters. I can tell you do some really interesting things with a lot of the names, the characters, and I'm fascinated by the world. I think I'm still trying to get like a sense of it. So we know it's a ceremony. We know it's some type of like it's like a vocational educational ceremony. I think it's really interesting. Um, I think what's interesting with this piece is the use with gender. So it's really interesting. So you set up very early on. You clarify the character's gender. So with no gender felt or declared. So because they don't declare a gender, which actually makes me think that the story is really about gender, which is actually extremely fascinating. And I think from a reading perspective, I think using the Tay Tim pronouns threw me off just a little bit, but I think it's just because I'm not used to using that as a pronoun. Um, I'm I think I'm kind of curious how it would treat the average reader, because I think the average reader is going to say Tay Tim, cool, all right, genderless, not probably non-binary, but it's not clarified. Um, the reader's probably still going to read them as they them, because the reader's so conditioned to. But it's fascinating. I don't know what standards are with All right. Yeah, so I see the comments. Yeah, and it's all right to not like a piece. That is absolutely all right. And once again, pieces aren't always going to work out for everyone. And I think this is what's powerful, right? So I think it's powerful when we can recognize that stories aren't meant for us, and then still be able to give feedback in a way that's kind and clear. Mm. Yeah, so I could see that. I What's interesting is I think with messaging and comments, sometimes comments can be taken out of context, but we're totally all good, guys. No worries. Hakuna Matata. Okay. So I think what's interesting with Tay Tim with pronouns, and this is clearly a story about gender, which is really fascinating, by the way. I think what I would do is I will look at norms, and I would look at what standards are for writers in who are writing these types of books. So I think for writers where they're using like non-binary characters, or they're writing characters or stories that use gender pronouns, I would be curious to see what is the standard. I'm curious what other books where they use Tay Tim, because I know there's a number of different pronouns. I'm just not familiar with pronouns that don't fall under male and female. And I think it's really, really fascinating. So I think what I would do with it is I would just understand what the standard is for the genre when doing like non-genderless stuff like that. Um and maybe you're doing it right. Like maybe this is the right way to do it because you want to raise that awareness. And I actually think that is really powerful. I think it's good to be able to have stories that talk about experiences like this. And I think that's really fascinating. So but yeah, I'd be really curious, Desdemona, to see what if there's any other books in the category that and I'm curious to see how much they change pronouns throughout the book and how it's done in different ways. So I'd be really fascinated by that. Let's see. All right. So let me pull up the story itself. Interesting. Desmond, so you said Tay Tim is one I made up after asking a group of people with neo pronouns how they'd feel if their pronoun was used to mean little kid. And they were like, nah. Oh, that's actually interesting. That's really fascinating, interesting. So what it does, Desdemona, because I see the discourse around it, is because you're using it, it pulls the reader's attention to the use of pronouns because it's just never done, right? It's never done like that. So then the reader is like, okay, is this the correct way to read it? And then it might pull them from the story. But I'm also just not sure what is the correct way to do it because I'm not familiar with this type of character type. But the great thing is you can always learn and you can always research and see what are ways to do it in a way that's effective. But I've gone that point enough. Let's go with the story itself. I think you do some really interesting world building. Um, oh yeah. So some of the characters' names, I might add like a glossary. I might add a glossary right in the beginning just for pronunciation because I wasn't sure like if it was just one character that'd be one thing, but you mentioned some other characters and some other world building names I think in a couple pages coming up. So I think I would just clarify like how do you pronounce them? I wasn't sure is it Mikhail? I think it's Michael. No, it's like I know it's not Michael. It's Mikhail. It has to be Mikhail. Mikhail. That's actually a really cool name, by the way. I'm like all down for that name. Mikhail. Mikhail. I like that name. So I think that's good for setting up a little bit of world building here because we clearly have a number of words that are setting up the world that we have it here. Let's see, one curls. And I think it's clear we're setting up for a ceremony. All right. Akela took a small step closer to her mother, who stood proud and controlled. Noticed their surrounding commotion. She showed no sign. Tay thought of reaching for her hand. Her warm fingers curled just slightly, resting next to light beige, undyed linen slacks. Just a passing thought. Sometimes she didn't like that, telling Mikhail Tay had to be strong. Hmm. I kind of like that. So I like that we get some character development here very early on. Mikhail. So we're getting the character development with Mikhail and the mother, which is good. If she knows the surrounding commotion, she showed no sign. Tay thought of reaching for her hand. It was just a passing thought. Something she didn't like that. Telling Mikhail Tay had to be strong. Yeah, Moma, I agree. That's a really good that's a good thought, but it's just not on topic. So we're gonna keep our comments on topic about the story. But thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Momo. Appreciate you. And yeah, so I think this is always once again, it's always just a good side note because like there's so much stuff going in the world. It's we just try to keep things on topic with the story. Woo! I appreciate it. All right. But you know what's interesting, Desdemona, you know what's interesting is when we write stories, when we write stories that can create really great thought-provoking discussion, like that's kind of the goal as storytellers, isn't it? And I think that's when we write stories that take on like big things like around gender, I think that's actually can be really, really powerful. So I think then the way that we navigate the character development, the world building, the themes is really important in helping other people, other readers who are experiencing your story to better understand, be like, oh, this is a different point of view that I'm just not familiar with. And then it helps to navigate and further conversations. So that way more people can feel comfortable with navigating and talking about the conversations that are important to you. Hmm. You know what's interesting is when I get into the first bit of this, I feel like I have a understanding of McKeel, and then we have the understanding of the mother. Tay turned from the empty stage. McKeel's gaze followed the thick outline of the dark blue circle Tay stood in. Mm. All right. So I think you do a good job of setting up all the characters here in the world. Only one child was there, like most of the circles. It was found with twins, and another had to be too close in age. Wide dark green eyes met tears, and the child they belonged to smiled warmly. I'm a less, he, him. You know what I do actually like about this? I like that every character uses their like introduces their gender pronouns in their dialogue. I think that's really fascinating. And that is something that that a lot of people have done and would do. So it's interesting. It really helps focus the conversation on gender, which I find wildly fascinating. Mm. And I mean, Mast and Desdemona, you guys bring up really good points. So, like, understanding like who your book is marketed to helps you better tell the story. So that way, your readers are it's going to attract the right readership, right? So if this is like, okay, let's say the story is like you're writing the story for like a wide market, it might not resonate as much with if it's for the non-LGBT community because they might not resonate with the gender discussion. But you said here these novels are probably going to be somewhat niche anyways because it's a very queer friendly world, and then you're like, okay, so clearly then you're going to market to an LGBT community, which is a very, very strong niche, by the way. It's a very, very strong niche. So I think that's actually a really good choice. Because then with niches, you can get diehard fans, you can get diehard readers who fall in love with it because they feel like my story doesn't get told that often. This is a story that resonates me because most people don't tell my type of story. That's why niches work very, very well. So that's actually really good to know, Desdemona. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see, what's her name here? Let's walk into the edge of a circle. Tay looked up and her mother nodded. McKeel, Tay, Tim. I think what I would recommend, I might send them a talk rumble the ancient ship door. So I think I would cut down on some of the wording. I would cut down on some of this description over here. I want to get to the action beats a little sooner because I was like, okay, cool, I get it. There's a bunch of people there. They're all kind of hanging out. I think I would get rid of this, cut down on the wordiness. So I'll just highlight. Let's just highlight that in orange. So I would cut down all this wordiness. Let's get to the ceremony a little faster because I feel like you've already done a good job of setting us up like, okay, they're there for a ceremony. There's a bunch of people. What's next? Right? Because we don't know what the attention is yet. Let's see, silent metallic rumble of the ancient ship door being slid open. And I like that. So I like that we have some type of ancient ship. I almost want a little bit more like what does this ancient ship look like? Did you set up the ship somewhere here? I think maybe I just want like a sentence, like nothing crazy, just like a sentence that like, what type of ship are we looking at? Because you set up a lot of the characters. Yeah, I was like, you've set up all the characters. I don't think we know what type of ship this is. So you might be able to add a little bit more description with the ship. That could be good. The mini chatters. And then this is basically starting off. The caretakers walked in first, dressed in the same linen clothes as most in attendance. And I mean, this is good, right? So this is like the opening of a ceremony when you have like all the people show up. This is that moment in Game of Thrones in the first or second episode. This is the first episode when all the Lannisters show up at the Starks. This is the moment when anytime you have a ceremony where all the other characters from the other world are showing up and you're seeing the sense of a larger world. So this is actually a good moment to have. But because we don't know what type of world we're in yet, you want to make sure we have at least enough of an understanding. But this is interesting. So like I like this bit. And for so you don't lose descriptions, I might recommend with a different ideas. I might just recommend making these separate paragraphs, right? So let us know about this caretaker because the caretakers, and then we have oh no, okay, these are the caretakers. Okay, never mind. JK. I thought this was different characters. But this is very, very interesting to me. I'm like, okay, so we have kind of like the different class levels with these caretakers. Yep, and I get this. This is a good moment. We have the 8 caretakers go on to the stage, stand behind the podium, and then we're getting to the deputy. On a motorized wheelchair. We got like Professor Xavier over here. I don't know why I'm thinking Professor Xavier with the wheelchair. You travel towards the center of the stage. McKill stood on her tiptoes. Okay, so then we get here. So essentially, we want to get to this moment as soon as possible because this is the moment that's really kind of setting up what's going to happen. So I think if you can condense some of these early pages just a little bit, this is the first action that's actually happening. That's kind of progressing the story, right? So far before this, the majority of everything you've done has been world building and some world building and some character development, but we haven't really done anything with the plot yet, other than knowing that this is a ceremony. So we want that tension. We want to understand what's happening with the ceremony. So I think getting here a little sooner could be powerful. But I like what the deputy says. Betula Birch is a great name, by the way. Excellent name. I love it. Our little ones will begin a journey. This bit was a little bit just of like a mouthful because there's so many different names that I'm just not familiar with. I might recommend splitting this dialogue up with action or just cutting down on some of these names and introducing the idea a little later. 3 cycles around Sol. So this is 3 cycles around the sun. Some are 4 and few have reached 5 souls. All right, so the children have circled around the sun, I'm assuming. I'm not sure if Sol is a planet or the sun. We accept them all as equals. The stay Talitha Harbor, age 946, the 16th of Exi. On this day, Talitha Harbor, you set up Talitha, age 946. So is that how, I think that's how old the planet is. I'm pretty sure this is like a thing, the 16th of Exi. So I think this is the age of the planet and then the year. I'm pretty sure. And once again, this is why glossaries are super important for sci-fi or fantasy worlds. But this is good because this is the moment that we really want to understand, right? The children are embarking on discovery. And then like once again, you go back down here and like we just don't really need this as much because you've already set up the audience size. So then the reader's like, okay, well, we already know there's a bunch of people, right? What's important is like a bunch of people are clapping and there's different types of people, right? And maybe it's focusing on who's clapping. I would say let's keep the focus on the deputy. What the deputy says is good. Choices made as autonomous people. Ooh, I like that. Right. So they have a slightly different calendar, so I didn't use years. I think that's a good call. I like that you're going to set up with the calendar. I think that's a smart choice. Okay, so your this bit as well, his second bit, if you can shorten it, I would highly recommend it because this is kind of plotting and world building. These are the vegetables that the reader needs to know, but they might not want to know it. So you might just want to make it a little shorter, um, or break it up with a little bit of action. Maybe have the deputy roll out a little sooner. So once you're done, he said in voice. And then this is interesting. So I got when I was listening to his speech, I got pulled in with this paragraph because it's broken up with a little bit more action. His mischievous grin, I'm like, oh, he's gonna say something interesting. And then the little bug juice. I'm like, what the heck is little bug juice? You did a great job of foreshadowing with whatever this thing is. Really, really great job with that. I think this is the strongest bit of his speech right here because it's so well balanced between action, dialogue, and foreshadowing. Really, really great job. I want all of his segments to feel like this paragraph. And then we get the description of what the bug juice is. And then we get the setup for them being called by the caretaker. And then this one lost me just a little bit. Hello, my name is Curry Appeline. Zazer. So I thought their name was Curry. I was a little confused by that. But then you said Zay said. So Zay is for gender, right? Zay is a different gender reference, I think. So I think I would just clarify that because then this kind of I'm like, okay, so what does Zay? So Zay there is the gender pronoun, I'm pretty sure. And then, hello, my name is Curry Appley. I might not even use this. I might not even use a speech tag and just reference their name, at least just in this specific moment. Okay, so it's a neopronoun. Yeah, so I think even from like a wording, I think you could get away with not having a speech tag and then just have Curry here. Um, yeah, just so it doesn't get cluttered. This is good. This is a really good character beat. Dark bushy eyebrows. Awesome, and that leads us to the end of the beat. Really, really great work, Desdemona. I want to say this is thank you so much for submitting. That's all that I have for you. But I really want to congratulate you and commend you on really taking the effort with this story. I absolutely love it when writers tackle more difficult worlds, when writers tackle more difficult character types, worlds, themes, philosophies, ideas that resonate with them. Because, like, that's the beauty of being an author that we get to choose the types of worlds that we want to write. We get to choose the types of characters. So that way we can help the conversation with other people who can relate with our experiences or experiences that we want to talk about. So, really, really great work, my friend. I'm so, so grateful that you shared this, and I'm wishing you the best of luck. You're more than welcome to continue to resubmit this piece in the future if you're wanting some additional feedback on it, like after you've revised it, or you can resubmit a future section on it. So, really, really great work. Um, Excellent. All right, my friends. So, where are we at? All right, so we're making some good timing today. So let's see, what do we have on deck? All right, and if you're enjoying the stream, share it with a friend. This is the Right Now community. We have writers of all different genres, styles, feedback, and whatever. We want to bring in writers of all different mindsets because at heart, storytelling doesn't change. Regardless of whether you're writing a science fiction, a fantasy, a memoir, a children's story, a graphic novel, an anime, you still have to have a believable character. You have to have a plot that makes sense. You have to have world building that is interesting. And then what changes is the genre conventions and the style, whatever, whether it's a script or a book or whatever. So bringing in more writers in the community is such a win for us because then we get better feedback. And then when you submit for the critique streams, you'll get better feedback as well. So make sure to tap that share button and share it with a friend. All right, let's do it. Oh man, how are you guys doing? I'm ready for this next story. I'm super excited, and I think we are definitely mixing it up. So I think we're going into where are we at? All right, so I'm just pulling up my the next story that we have, and it looks like we have one of our returning ones. Let me pull it up here. I'm seeing which one we have. All right, so we have a returning one. I'm going to be pulling up for Zencast. So Zen, I got you here. We're going to be hopping into Welcome to Spellpaige Academy Middle School. This is a slice of life fantasy sci-fi. So I know we've done a couple of chapters, I think, in past episodes. So I'm curious. Looks like we're going to be hopping into chapter 6. We're going to see just what we can help Zencast with in this next section. Oof, man. So I feel pretty good about that. Absolutely got you, my friend. We're going to hop in and see how we can help you out. All right, so let's do it. And let's see. All right, let me get yours set up over here, Zen. All right, and I am all set. So once again, we're mixing it up. And by the way, welcome. If you're just hopping into the stream, this is the story and critique stream. This is where I do live readings and live critiques for members of the community. So if you want feedback, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description. I'll also drop it for our Twitch friends and fam. If you're wanting feedback on your story, I have done well over 230 live story readings and critiques on the Story and Critiques show, and many, many more to come, my friends. There we go. I just dropped it in the chat for anybody who's ever wanting to submit. All right, and let's do it. So without further ado, let's get into this next one. We're going to help out Zencast. All right, Zen. So we got, let's see, where did it go? All right. So now reading Welcome to Spellpaige Academy Middle School. This is a slice of life by author Zencast 5. And Zencast is just looking for general feedback. They want to know if this feels flat. This is Tomoko's first day of class, and she should be excited, but something is wrong. This is the first draft of a novel, so we're going to focus on developmental and not grammar. All right, and let's do it. I find myself in a village at night, somewhere strangely familiar. I sniffed the air. The air shimmered with the scent of grilled meats, sweet candied veggies, and incense. Bug shaped lanterns floated lazily overhead, casting soft pools of amber light along cobbled paths. Music echoed faintly from somewhere far away, muffled and nostalgic. A festival. I was standing in the middle of a festival. Blinking in surprise, I looked down at myself. I was wearing my old scarlet yukata, patterned with swirling gold leaves, one I hadn't worn since I was a toddler. My arms felt smaller, my hands rough and soft, round and soft. Then I saw my reflection in the window of a candy vendor's stall. I was 4 years old. Panic fluttered in my chest. I spun around, searching the crowd. Tomoka-chan, wait for us! That voice, Vanessa's. I turned and saw her. Not the cool, composed Vanessa I remembered from my older years, but a younger version running towards me. Behind her were my mother, my father, and a man I almost didn't recognize until I saw the faint glow of antenna. Mr. Tiki, one of Vanessa's guards. Iseku, with pale segmented limbs and a calm, kind expression. He had always helped tend the garden behind her house. Seeing him again sent a strange warmth through me. Tomoko, you need to slow down, my mother called out with a laugh. I turned toward her, my body suddenly moving in slow motion. Okay, Mom, I said in a stretchy, dream drenched voice. Vanessa echoed my tone, mimicking me dramatically. Listen to your mother, young lady, Dad added with mock sternness, and I could hear Mom chuckle behind him. Yes, Papa, I giggled, this time running back to them, my tiny wooden sandals clicking lightly on the stone path. The village buzzed with excitement, children laughing, booths clanging with game bells, streamers fluttering in the wind. The sky above exploded in a blossom of fireworks. Bright golds, greens, and violets blooming overhead. I squealed in wonder, and Dad hoisted me up onto his shoulders. Up there, I felt like I could touch the stars. But the magic didn't last. The ground started to shake subtly. Then it shook with significant force. Screams pierced the air. Stars tipped over. Lights blinked out. In an instant, the joyous festival had turned into chaos. I lost my balance. The dream twisted. Suddenly, I was no longer in Dad's shoulders. I was alone in the crowd, too short to see above the rushing wave of people. Mama! Papa! I cried out, tears rising. Vanessa! People surged past me like a living river, their faces blurred, voices becoming static. I spun, looking around for anyone I recognized, but the world around me faded into blinding white. I shot up in bed, gasping, drenched in sweat. My dorm room ceiling greeted me in the darkness. My rapid heartbeat slowly settled as I placed a hand on my chest. I wasn't 4 anymore. I was here at Spellpaige in my dorm. It was just a dream. I glanced toward Cynthia's bed. She was still asleep, breathing softly. Her long lavender-streaked hair fanned over her pillow. She must have come back after I fell asleep. There is no way I could fall back asleep now. I slip out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and tiptoes barely through the dim hallway until I reach the quiet courtyard. Moonlight bathes the school's garden paths in silver. The cool night air kisses my cheeks and grounds me. I step onto the training platform near the fountain and took a deep breath. I began my Nico Tai Chi, slow, deliberate movements passed down in my race to restore inner focus. Each motion was like a breath, a soft resistance to the panic still echoing in my chest. As I was going through the movements, I realized that it wasn't just a dream. It was a forgotten memory. I was on Conchu 6 for summer vacation, staying in the capital when I was 4. I remember going to a festival on my last day in the village of Lampi. I asked myself, why is it coming back to me now? What's more confusing is that I don't understand why I saw explosions in my dream. Maybe I was mixing news footage I saw on TV with my dream? By the time I finished my Nico Tai Chi and checked the floating clock, I was already 5:30 hours. I sprinted back to the dorm, got cleaned up quickly, and dressed in my fresh school uniform. My stomach growled as I made my way to the cafeteria. The smell hit me first. Aromatic rice, grilled fish, simmering miso. The cafeteria was sleek and modern, with floating panels displaying menus and nutritional data. I walked up to the breakfast panel, tapped through the glowing icons, and select my usual comfort combo. A bowl of steaming ochazuke with savory dashi broth, a side of perfectly grilled gozen mackerel, and crisp pickled vegetables in bright reds and purples. Mm. As I look around for a seat, I spot Cynthia waving me over. She's already sitting with two girls I didn't recognize yet. Hey, Tomoko, come join us, Cynthia called. I made my way over, tray in hand. One of the girls wore a translucent visor with animated runes scrolling across it. Hey, Tomoko, I'd like you to meet Amore Minuet, Cynthia said. The girl with the visor nodded politely. And Livia Unagami. Greetings, Livia said with a curt bow. Nice to meet you, I said, settling into my seat and picking up my chopsticks. As I began eating, Amore spoke up. I'll be happy to be your tour guide during the lunch break. You've got my attention, I said with a smirk, raising an eyebrow. Then we'll meet at the front gate at 12 hours, Livia declared. Deal, we all chimed in together, just as a melodic chime signaling the end of breakfast. On the way to class, Cynthia placed her hand on my shoulder. Where were you earlier? I got worried. Hesitantly, I replied, I had the most vivid dream. But before I can continue, someone rudely bumped into me. Watch where you're going, Roku, a gruff feminine voice yells. Wait, I recognize that voice. It's that girl from the teleport train. Not wanting to take it laying down, I shot back. I heard better comes back from a Rio turkey sandwich. Get a life. Cynthia puts a hand on my shoulder. Good one, girl. I heard about that girl. She's a year above us. She's Antonia Zapica. Apparently, because of family drama, she got held back. People avoid her. I'll keep that in mind, I say. We already reached our class by the time we finished talking. Our first class was science. The classroom buzzes with anticipation as the teacher entered. She looks to be in her late 20s, wearing a lab coat underneath work attire, with blunt cut sky blue bangs and matching skin that shimmered slightly under the classroom lights. Good morning, class, she said with a warm but firm tone. I'm Hiromi Muzu. You may call me Mizu Sensei. I'm the science teacher and your homeroom teacher of class 1B. She wastes no time diving into the lesson, an introduction to the physics behind magic and how it interacts with biological systems. She explains that while modern medicine could handle injuries and diseases, it was completely ineffective against ancient spells and curses. To demonstrate, she brought out a petrified butterfly sealed inside a crystal cube. She applied various medicines from different planetary regions, liquids, mists, even nanobot injections. Nothing worked. Then, with a single drop of an old world potion, the butterfly stirred and began to flutter inside its container. The class gasped as it flew free, its wings glittering like stained glass. The bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson. That concludes today's lecture, Mizu Sensei said, smiling. Your magic artistry class is next. The next teacher enters shortly after Mizu Sensei leaves. He is older, probably in his mid-50s, with sharp features and long pointed ears, partially hidden beneath layers of salt and pepper hair. Glowing tattoos faintly marked his arms, and though his steps were slow, his eyes held a spark of focused energy. I am Fuya Gori, he said, his voice calm but commanding, your magical artist teacher. A quiet hush fell over the classroom as he paced slowly toward the front, hands clasped behind his back. In this class, you'll learn to craft the tools that help channel your magic using artistry. These objects, whether it's rods, rings, pendants, or staves, will become your conduits. Without them, overcasting may drain your life force or warp your spell work. And trust me, you do not want to experience magical backlash. To emphasize this point, Gori Sensei extended one palm and summoned a raw flame spell. Fire burst upward in a controlled arc, illuminating his face with amber light. As the flame dissipated, his shoulders slumped and he exhaled audibly. Casting without a channel is like shouting into a hurricane. Inefficient, dangerous, and exhausting. He motioned toward a set of long tables where blank sketch pads and rune ink drafting quills awaited us. Your first task, Sketch the concept for a magical item that reflects your essence. You have 15 minutes. Begin. There was a soft rustle of movement as everyone spread out. Quills glided across paper, some students sketching cautiously while others scribbled with confidence. I sit near the window, letting the sunlight warm my back as I think. What kind of item reflects me? I close my eyes and breathe in, thinking of water, movement, emotion, memory. Ray's drawing. Of my dream. Of Vanessa. My hands move almost without thought. A coral staff formed on the page, its top shaped like an open fish's mouth, spiraled fins wrapping the shaft. Fluid lines curved and swayed, giving the illusion of motion even on paper. When my turn came, I stood and held up the sketch. My concept item is called coral fish, I explained. It's carved from living coral, harvested ethically from tide-blessed reefs. The head of the staff is open mouthed like a koi, and the fins wrap down the shaft in gentle curves. It symbolizes adaptability, intuition, and emotional flow like water. Fuyagori studies it for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nods slowly. Creative, elegant, original, well thought out. He turns to the rest of the class. Making accessories like these usually takes months, even years. He said, stepping aside to reveal a large, rune-inscribed machine. Thanks to magical 3D printers, we can do it in minutes, but you'll need to gather your materials first. He holds a fragment of cracked crystal. Be very cautious. Imperfect or impure materials lead to unstable accessories, and yes, they explode. Laughter and nervous chatter rippled through the class. The bell rang. End reading. Wow. So once again, so really great work on this next chapter of Spellpaige. I feel like this was like the fun lesson part of the chapter where we get like the different professors and we get the cool different things. We get to learn about some of the magic of the world, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I liked we kind of got this cool butterfly thing going on in lesson 1, and then they get this cool kind of fire spell, and we're learning about the 3D printers and how some more of the magic works. I really enjoyed that bit of it. I think there were some interesting tension building moments that you did earlier on in the chapter, with the friends and then our antagonist, or like Draco Malfoy type antagonist. Yep. And then the dream sequence, which was interesting. I feel like I learned a couple of interesting things from the dream sequence. I feel like the dream sequence probably could be shortened just a little bit, because I get what it was trying to accomplish. You're trying to do character development to show their backstory from when they're 4, to probably do some foreshadowing and plotting is my gut instinct. But let's go back into it. Let's see what we see and see just how we can help you out. Oh, that's not pretty. Okay, there we go. So with this, back to the beginning. So Zen, I think what I really like is I like that we've seen different and earlier chapters of Tomoko, and we're seeing her kind of evolve and grow as we're going through the school. So we know that these visions, we know that some of these things that are happening in the world are kind of challenging her and forcing her to almost run away from wanting to look at things differently. It's building tension, which is good. And you're using that tension in her dream. Now, the chapter 5 probably ended off on the last school day. So let's see. The reader, if the reader's reading through this, the reader will probably pick up that this is a dream pretty quickly. And then just as a side note for tenses, you would still be in a present tense. So you go, I am. You said I'm wearing. Even though technically this is a past memory, this would be past removed. Even though this is technically a past memory, it's still present. The moment is still present in her dream. So you would still use those active stuff. Let's see. So I find myself in a village at night, somewhere strangely familiar. And then you do a good job, right? So clearly she's young. I almost might I'm thinking about it and I'm wondering if I would set up at the beginning. I find myself in a village at night. I'm 4 years old. I almost think like maybe it might be it, I kind of go back and forth. I think this is a subjective thing. Like I might set up that their age or how young. I mean, granted, no, this I think it happened when I was 4, but I don't think the character in the dream is 4 right now. So actually, never mind on that one because you're setting up with what they're wearing now, but they haven't worn since they was a toddler. So actually, that's fine. So never mind. JK. So this is good. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, they are 4 years old. Okay. Yeah, so this is the exact memory from when they were younger. Now, the only thing with this is if this was a dream, you're not really going to have a lot of this interiority. So that's why the way the dream is framed right now, you want to cut down on any interiority, any exterior narration, because you want us to stay in the present moment of the dream because dreams are surreal. This would be a little different if you're treating it as a flashback, but because this isn't a flashback and this is a dream, you want to focus on what is the character seeing, what is the strangeness of this, and what are they experiencing. And if you set it up here that clearly something is off, then the reader will go along and be like, okay, yeah, this is a dream. We're getting some backstory. Yeah, and I mean so you're setting up the whole world building here. Yeah, so I see where we're going. This is fine. I like that you're introduced that we got mom and dad. We got kind of a little bit of tension between the parents in our dream version of them. Now, the interesting with the dream is when it starts shaking, right? So we want to get to this. We want to get to this moment as soon as possible because this is kind of the action and the change in the dream. So whatever you can do to get us to the shaking moment, because this is the action, you'll pull the reader into the dream a little sooner. So get here faster. And this is good, right? So the reader knows we're in a dream now. Mom and Papa, yep, things are happening. That we know we're in a dream, but it's a past memory. Yep, and then they're in bed. Good, good, good. That's fine. You probably already set up Cynthia, so that's fine. I slipped out of bed. Night bathes the gardens. Yeah, and then this just kind of gives us a little like late, just woke up from a dream, wake up. Nico Tai Chi. You know something that I absolutely love that you do, Zen? You do a thing with like the way that you reference food and drink. I actually really, really like. I don't even know what like 90% of the things are that you reference, but it kind of makes me want them. And I think that's something that you do well, which is a notable thing for the slice of life subgenre. So yeah, very very good job on that. I like how you when you reference things, I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good actually. Um, I might, for anybody who doesn't know what a Neko Tai Chi is, I might maybe add a little bit of like a flavor profile, like what does it taste like? I know what chai tea tastes like, but I don't know what Neko Tai Chi tastes like. So that might help add to the sensory description of it. But I like that they're kind of using that to kind of like calm themselves down after this crazy dream. And then this bit here, I don't actually know if we really need this. You kind of already set us up that it was then when they were 4. And then you ask yourself, like, how come they're talking to themselves? This feels a little narratory right here because people generally don't. I mean, okay, writers do talk to themselves, but the reader's going to ask, how come they're randomly talking to themselves? And the reader will feel like, this might feel forced. If you do something like this, you would make this interiority, not a dialogue. unless there's another character present, or unless the character is known for saying things out loud to themselves. But I don't think they are. Yeah, so I think you could probably get rid of this whole you could get rid of this whole paragraph. I think because you've already set all that up. Um, and then we're really getting into the cafeteria scene. We get more food, which is good. It's the slice of life vibe. And Cynthia, this is good. We get some characters. So one of the girls wore a translucent visor with animated runes scrolling across it. Cool. All right. So one girl, visor with runes. Cool. All right. So Amore Minuet is visor girl. Good job. That works. And Livia Unagami. We need a little bit of some type of description. Who is Livia Unagami? She said with a curt bow. And then I would add the description here. What one description, right? So if Amore is Rune Visor Girl, who is Livia? Oh, Tai Chi is martial arts. I mean, that actually makes more sense. Oh, that's actually really interesting. I totally thought this was a drink for some reason. I was reading it out of context. You said I begin my Neko Tai Chi, slow, deliberate movements passed on my race to restore inner focus. Each motion was like a breath, a soft resistance to the panic still echoing in my chest. Okay, then never mind with my original comment. I was that was just out of a focus because it's a live reading. That's fun. Thanks for the clarifications then. You're like Tai Chi, like, that is not a drink. Yeah, you're right. Neko does mean cat. Mhm. Maybe I just want a Tai Chi. Maybe that's what it is. Because I think I think I was thinking about this. I assumed they were like drinking something to wake up, but Tai Chi actually makes way more sense. Makes exponentially more sense. Hmm. All right. So you're setting up for the tour guide, Livia. So Amaray. I'm pretty sure it's Visor Girl. Yeah. So Amaray. So Visor Girl is going to be your tour guide. Good. And you've kind of set her up now, but she'll probably get more description later on. So that's good stuff. Something at the end. So this is just an interesting note for writers, something for you guys to learn about. This happens all the time. So what you're doing here is you're setting up for this next action. Like hesitantly, I replied, I had the most vivid dream, but before I can continue, someone rudely bumped into me. Now, the question I ask, and this actually happens a lot, when we're setting up for a moment, why include but before I can continue, right? Uh, in theory, when we're writing it, we want to draw tension. But in actuality, and this is me as an editor, you can actually cut moments like this because let's just have the action happen. So in this, I would reframe this and say, hesitantly, I replied, I had the most vivid. And then I think this is actually would be a good use of an M dash. Hesitantly, I replied, I had the most vivid. Someone rudely bumped into me. Right. And then this is more effective because you're not describing that someone's about to bump into them. This pulls the reader. This is more present. This is closer psychic distance. So that'd be my suggestion for this. Always something good to think about. Let's see. And I do it all the time when I'm writing, and then I have to go back. I'm like, yeah, that's just not necessary. So food for thought. And I like this. I really like this. We get the reference to that little antagonist chick again. I remember from the train scene, which was good. And then just remember different characters. Dialogue needs to be on a new line. And then we get to the class scenes, and I don't think I actually have too many recommendations. Um, yeah, I was like, I don't think I had too many recommendations for the class scenes. I enjoyed the class scenes. I didn't feel like they were too much. And I think what you do here, because this is all world building, so this is all like our magic that we're getting to learn about. I found this fascinating. I think I was intrigued by this. I'm like, liquids, mist, and even nanobot injections. I'm like, oh, there's nanobots in this world. That's kind of cool. I want to know more about that. And they're trying to make some type of potion, and then there's a butterfly, and that's super cool. So I was actually really down for that. And what's interesting is this wasn't a very long class. I think if you waste no time, the first class feels a little on the shorter side because there's only one real action, but you don't really need to explore more. I might just add a line of she continued to share these types of spells, and then the bell ring. So just so it feels like the class didn't last 2 minutes. So I might just add a line about passing to pass the time a little bit, either before or after. So actually, I think I would add a passing timeline in between here. So then this is because this is effective with the bell ringing. All right. And then let's see. So with this, Tim says point. And I really like that. So the second sensei, Gori sensei, I like what he's doing with the fire, and he's kind of teaching them. I like that we get a bit more of the magic. I find that always fascinating being a fantasy nerd. Absolutely love that. And then they're basically doing a magic practice, which is good. That's interesting that our MC is really good at this specific lecture. It makes the MC feel at a little bit stronger, and then also like, okay, so it's not hard for them. I think just make sure if they're going to be good at something like this, you want to have them fail at another point, either before or after this moment, because you've given them a, what was that? So you had the nightmare. Okay, because the nightmare was technically a loss. I mean, it's remembering, but it was still scary. Then you have the moment with the antagonist in the cafeteria. That's a loss. No, that was a win for them because they said something clever. And then you have them have a win here in class. So, and I don't know what comes next, but I would say make sure to mix up with a downbeat for them at whatever story beat comes next. Good. And this is just a little bit more world building. So yeah, so overall, I think really great job, Zen. I think you're definitely going in the right direction. I'm once again fascinated. I feel like I'm in like the school mode with these characters, and you're doing exactly what you're intending to do. So really great work for with the draft that it's at. I'm excited to continue reading and seeing how the story evolves. So thanks for sharing, friend. Thanks for bringing it back. Oh man. So all right. So that was another really good story. I felt pretty good about Zen's submission. Very, very happy about that. And I saw a couple of you guys hopped in during the chat. So by the way, so for those of you guys who are hopping in, I also have writing and audio services. So I know that when writers submit to the story and critique stream, sometimes the queue can get backed up because I can only read so many stories on a stream. I always try to make sure I offer the free thing. So basically, if you're a writer in the community, or even if you're new to the community and you're working on a book, you're working on a screenplay, you're working on something, and you need help with it, we have options to help you out. We have free options, and then we have paid options. The free options, the story and critique stream. If you need help you can go join the Discord. You can post your story in the looking for help and get feedback from our community. If you want to go for paid, you can go for super cheap. $5 will get you to the YouTube channel membership. And then you can watch the videos during the Critique Right Now group, which our Critique Right Now group is tomorrow. And then you can view it and you can get ideas and help and inspiration. Or you can join the tiers that lists it all down in the join button below. And then let's say you're needing more specialized, like one-on-one feedback. I do book editing. If you're wanting like alpha or beta reading, I offer all of those services from alpha reading all the way to developmental, copy editing, line editing, proof reading, and all the things. So if you're needing help with your story, I generally put my prices for writing services just below market value. And then I offer huge discounts to new writers, channel members, community members, because I recognize that writing a book is super expensive, but we got to invest a little bit. So if you want to know more, or like you want to set up, like we could do a free consultation, usually with editing services. I will do a free sample so you know exactly what to expect, but everything's listed on my website, right? All the pricing, all the stuff is over there. So if you want to know more about like the writing services, what I would suggest is I'll drop this link. It's also down in the YouTube description down below. But you can fill out this form. It just has you answer a few questions, and then we can hop onto a free consult so you can learn more about what my process is and then when you can get booked with me. So I just wanted to put that out there because I always try to find a balance between helping writers with doing the free things and then helping writers with doing the paid stuff, since this is my main business. And like we all know, we got to make a living. So I very much appreciate you, my friends. And on that note, let's see. All right. So I think that is all that I got for you today, my friends. I can feel my voice just a little bit. I feel like we got through some incredible stories today. We definitely got through some great reads. If you hopped in late, make sure to catch the replay. I'll be adding time codes so that way you can hop to the part of the video that brings you the most value, or if you just want to listen to the replay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Make sure if you want to hear announcements, we have the big Freaky Friday announcement. We have a specialty stream announcement. We have some cool things coming up in the community. That'll be on our Monday update stream. So come join us Monday afternoon. It'll probably be in the early afternoon. And come see these big things coming up. Our Freaky Friday competition is next weekend. Make sure to come back and join us. It'll be Friday and Saturday. We're going to have all the story readings. We're going to have all the stories competing. We're going to have some games, some prizes, and so many things. If you've seen our previous writing competitions, the first Freaky Friday or Faded Fantasy, then you know that our competitions are always so much fun. So definitely make sure to come join us. That will be great. So I'll be talking through what the competition will look like on Monday during our announcement, and I'm hoping to see you there. All right, my friends. The next story and critique stream will be back in 3 weeks. I want to say in 3 weekends. So the next story and critique stream will be back on Saturday, November 8th. Since the next 2 weekends, we got things planned here on the weekends, but we'll be back in November, and then we'll return to our bi-weekly critique stream schedule. So if you're wanting help with your stories, submit now, and you'll get added to the queue. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining. And also, maybe you want to go get some work done on your writing right now. Chat Soul does a co-working session in the Discord called Write Chat every single Saturday. They're doing that in the Discord right now. If you want to join the Discord, link down in the YouTube description down below. Come join the Discord. Go hop in. You could have the camera off. You can just join in. Soul usually has music up, and it's a great way if you just want to go hang out with the other writers or try to get some writing sprints in. So go join over in the Discord if you're still wanting to get some writing in. And that's what I got for you. If you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, thank you for joining. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. Stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.